It's a beautiful spring day here in Seoul, South Korea, and I decided it's time to get blood pumping again outside, breathe in some fresh air and hear the birds in the background. So I want to talk a little bit about sliding kicks and how to improve the power of sliding kicks. Very often people rely only on the momentum of the kicks, so you just shift your body weight and towards the target, but they tend to neglect the rotational forces of the hip, which is fundamental to all kicking in ITF Taekwondo at least. So the reason they neglect this is because they miss an intermediate step. So people would learn maybe doing a side kick, side piercing kick from the back leg, and then also from the front leg, and then the instructor would just teach them immediately to do a sliding kick like this. And because of that immediate shift from a normal kick to a sliding kick, the hip rotation is neglected because there's an intermediate step that is necessary to teach how to rotate the waist, how to make more of the core muscles in the kick. So this intermediate step is called a step over kick. So either stepping with the back leg behind or forward. Now in orthodox teaching in ITF, when you do a regular step, we tend to step with the back leg in front and doing our technique, something like this. And when you do a jump, you would step behind, something like that. But this is not a fixed rule, it's just a rule of thumb, and I'm going to show you why it's important to step either in front or in back with the back leg for kicks, which is based on the type of kick and the hip rotation it requires. And I will focus on two kicks, that is the turning kick and the side piercing kick. I will pause the video since there are people coming up behind me. So let's start with the turning kick. So we have a basic turning kick done with the front leg, lifting up, rotating the hips like that, or done with the back leg, bringing the leg up at a slight angle, not directly in front but slightly to the side, so you can employ the hip rotation to kick. Now if you want to do a sliding kick, most people will just slide, bring one foot to the other foot and then do the kick. But often what happens is they lose the rotational force of the hips when they do that, because they are not thinking about how to rotate the hip towards the kick. The goal here is just to quickly move from one spot to another, and that is not the ideal for doing this kick. You want to have more rotation in your kick to have more power. So how to do it? Well, you will step with your back leg in front of the front foot. This is the intermediate exercise or the intermediate technique that I teach. So facing the opponent, step over with the front leg, and now your hips are turned already, which is an ideal position to rotate them back for your turning kick. So as you bring your leg up, notice that my leg is not completely forward, it's slightly slanted because my hips are turned, and from here I can bring the kick out in a whipping fashion, rotating the bottom foot. If you were to step behind trying to do the turning kick, then you'll have to bring your foot all the way back to create that rotation in the hip. So the best way to do it is to step in front. Your hip is already cocked into a position for firing, and then you can just execute the kick from there. So continue practicing with the stepping motion, and then you can increase the speed, where instead of just a slow step, they step faster, and eventually you do it in a kind of a skipping fashion, where by the time this foot lands, the other foot kicked like that. So this is the way to do a turning kick. The opposite is true for the side piercing kick. If you were to do a side piercing kick stepping across, then you have to bring your foot all the way over and then turn your hip. So that's not ideal. Excuse me. So what you do instead is step behind. Notice as I step behind, my foot is pointing in your direction. It's not turned backwards already, because that's the final position. We need that foot to rotate later. So we step behind. From here the kick comes up as if it's going to make this kind of arc shape that I spoke about in the previous video, and then rotate the bottom foot to create the hip rotation. So I'll show again. I step behind and rotate the foot as I execute the kick. So this is two different ways. I'll show it quickly from the front. So for the turning kick, I'm going to step behind. My hip is already chambered, and from this chambering position I can easily rotate for the kick. Same with the side piercing kick. For the side piercing kick, I step behind. My foot is not completely turned over yet, it's turned only halfway, and from here I can bring the leg up for the kick and rotate on the bottom foot. Once students have mastered this kick, the step over kick, only then do I teach the sliding kick, because now they understand the mechanics of the rotational forces necessary to create power. So for the sliding side piercing kick or sliding turning kick, the same thing. The student will imagine stepping in front. They might not do it in practice, but the intent is there, and as they have that intention, they know how the position of the hips should be. So what I usually teach for the sliding is the moment the back foot lands, the front foot needs to reach the target. So you don't want it to be a 1-2 motion. It should be one fluid motion like this. So there, the moment my back foot touches the floor, the other foot touches the target as one single motion. The same with the side piercing kick. Student has to have the intent of the foot going to the back, lifting the knee and executing the kick, but in one fluid motion. The moment the back foot lands, the front foot touches the target like that. By doing these incremental or in-between steps in teaching the sliding kick, you greatly enhance the mechanical proficiency of the kick. So the kick is not only reliant on the forward momentum of your legs push to create power, it includes as well the rotational forces of the hips. And of course, this is my understanding of sine wave in ITF Taekwondo as well. The sine wave often creates the forward dip that's necessary, whereas the hip creates the additional rotational force that's necessary. Both things work together depending on the technique. Some techniques prefer more hip rotation, other techniques prefer more vertical or momentum technique, momentum power generation. In any case, we can do the same for all other kicks. The front snap kick, for instance, require you to step in front. The hip should be chambered more to the back, and from here you can launch the front kick. And I often, especially in this type of kick, I like to do the side front kick. So the hip, the leg comes from the back over and kick. You can do the same with like a hooking kick, for instance, whether, let's say, a reverse turning kick with the front leg. So in that case, I step behind and my leg comes over and I hook the leg back. So all the kicks can be divided in either a front or back cross step with the leg. You just need to think about how you require the hip to rotate and to add that extra force to the kick at the end. Have a nice day.